Okay, number one, the first statement. It makes more sense to me every day why it's only 144,000 that are the so-called chosen ones, the chosen people. And I don't feel like this statement need more explanation, to be honest. But if you think about it, I Googled this number, I don't know if it's correct, but we are 8.1 billion people on this planet. And you can say plus minus something, because there are a lot of people that are undocumented. According to religion and some spiritualists, there are only 144,000 that are the so-called chosen people. God's chosen people, the Most High's chosen people. And in the beginning, I was like most people. You've probably been thinking about this too, it sounds so small, like 144,000 out of 8.1 billion. Do you know how little that amount is? And you have people making YouTube videos, making statements, making all kinds of stuff, thinking that they are part of this for some reason, because they are following certain rules and regulations. I think it's hilarious, but I'm just saying that the more I meet people, the more that I am in society and just interact with people and travel and all of this stuff, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense for me why it's only 144,000. That's all I have to say. It makes sense. Arabs, Middle Eastern people are the main reason for Islam having a bad reputation. So why am I saying this? Just know I'm not alone thinking like this. I have been talking to a lot of people, and especially people that practice Islam, that are Muslims, and they will share the same statement and say that when people talk about Islam being violent and people are sacrificing people and, the suicide bombings and all of this, and misinterpret the Sharia laws and all of this stuff, most of the times they're not thinking about the other practitioners, because you have Islam is like Christianity or Judaism or any other religion is very widespread. Like you have people in Asia practicing Islam, you have people in Africa, in Latin America, all over the world, you have people practicing this religion. And for some reason, I would say without exaggerating, 9 out of 10 times, when it is something on the news or something has happened, something violent, some kind of suicide bombing, some kind of war, some kind of outrage, it is Middle Eastern Arab people that are often the reason or doing this stuff. It's very seldom you will see another practitioner do this stuff. And when you see this often enough, you start to think, okay, so what is it? What is it that makes some of this stuff occur more in certain groups than others? And it's a lot of factors, of course. You need to take that in consideration. That comes to everything in life. You need to you need to basically check everything. I was talking to somebody about religion, and I was basically saying that I'm not religious, I'm not even spiritualist like that, or spiritual. But if I would practice, go full hard, practice any religion, I said it would either be Islam or it would be Judaism. And one of the main reasons was because these religions, they are very original. They haven't changed the books, the history, the anything to try to make it fit in today's society, And I feel like when it comes to stuff like that, you should leave it as it is. You can include people, of course, but not change something like that. Do you understand? Especially religion, just keep it as it is and then you adapt around it, basically. So I was like, nah, this one feels original. So if any of the prophecies, the statements that are in these books are true, that they have been for centuries, they have been saying the same stuff for centuries. So it's not that people are adapting or anything like that. That is one of the reasons. I have a lot of more reasons, but that is one of the main reasons. But then I was like, you know what? Like, all of these religions, especially Islam, like, it is a Middle Eastern Arab religion. I remember having this conversation with two practitioners that was from West Africa, two guys, and they were just laughing. It was like, no, Islam is not an Arab religion. You know, this is for everybody. And I was like, of course, it's for everybody, but I mean the origin. Like the little that I know, the little that I have read and so far, is basically like everything is surrounding the Middle East somehow. You know, like they have one, what is it they're saying? That before the end times or something like that, you will see like the Middle East blossom. You will see, was it in Syria, I think? I don't want to misquote, but I think it was in Syria. Like you would see, or maybe Saudi Arabia, you would see like the desert blossoming, like trees and bushes and just wildlife will start growing, you know. And when you start to see that, you know that, you know, stuff is gonna start changing. And basically like talking about that, you know, that it's gonna be peace in the Middle East first. And I was like, not to be rude like that, I know, because I have friends from all over the world, like I said, growing up. And I know some of the fuck shit that these people have been going through with the wars and all of this, you know, getting bombed and getting their oil and everything stolen from them. Like they show pictures of how their city was looking back in the days, and it was like beautiful. Like you would think that you were in some kind of Western society almost, you know, and then how it looks like now, you know. So you see that these people, they have gone through hell and hot water, but in the same time, it's like, okay, your religion is based on that when you guys have it good, you know, that peace is gonna start in your place. And even the prophets that they have, the way that they are describing their prophets, their Mehdi and stuff like that, he's gonna come from a certain family with a certain name, and he has a certain facial aesthetic, you know, that is typical Middle Eastern. So it's like, okay, so think about all of the other practitioners that are black, brown, Latin, whatever ethnicity, you know, think about them. You have Somalia have gone through basically similar, if not worse, than some of the stuff that is happening in the Middle East. Burma and a lot of all of these places, you know, like you have many people around the globe that are going through far more worse. Like their country is not even their country. Like at least like some of these Middle Eastern people, they can say that they are still able to live in their country, you know, or they can at least say that at one point they had a good working society, was functional, like, you know, like the infrastructure, everything was working. Some of these other practitioners that come from other countries, they have never seen anything like that, because their countries, their society has been just turmoil from the day of dawn because of war and injustices. So myself as a black person, seeing this, I feel a little bit like, okay, so I'm gonna jump into somebody else's belief basically and practice their, you know, and it's like, it's nothing wrong with that. Like you will have, I have one of the other statements here, I will come to that later. You will basically have like Westerners, you know, here, they will practice like Buddhism, Hinduism, and all of this stuff, you know, and it has nothing to do with them. They're not related whatsoever, and they will worship and pray to like deities that doesn't even look like them. So it's not that you must feel that you resemble somebody to follow them. Absolutely not. But I'm just saying that every country, every society, every religion, like every group of people have their own culture, have their own gods, have their own way of thinking in the beginning of dawn, you know, like, and then you had like religion and spirituality and all of this infiltrating, or not infiltrating, that is a bad word, but you know what I mean, is, you know. So so I was thinking like, okay, so if Islam is from the beginning, like even the native tongue, the native language, the book, the original book is written in Arabic. You know, Arabic is not an African language. It's not. We have a lot of languages, but none of them are originally Arabic. From the day of dawn, is not. It's something that has come with the colonization and people moving, and do you understand? So I was like, okay, if this is their religion, you know, like it started with them and all of this stuff, you know, it makes sense for them. Then of course, like they feel a little bit more guarded when it comes to that. So when people do stuff like burn the holy book, we had a lot of incidents like that lately over here. Burn the holy book or just talk shit about the prophets or anything like that. They get like, they take that to heart, you know? And I'm not saying that other practitioners doesn't take that to heart, they do. But when it comes to all of this, you know, the suicide bombing, the everything, it is fanatics, of course. You can't say that all Middle Eastern, all Arab people are like that. All of these practitioners are like that. No, you can't. But majority, if not almost all of them, has had some Middle Eastern root. They have done this stuff. So I will just give like a small example. Recently here, it was just like a month ago, I think. They had it was 2 different times. It was 2 different people that was burning the Quran, the Muslims' holy book. They were burning it just to start something. And the last time somebody did that, he came from Iraq. He was an Iraqi. Maybe he was like a Christian Iraqi. Like, I don't think that he can be a Muslim doing something like that to his own book, but I'm just saying his origin was Iraq, you know, and majority over there, majority overseas is Muslims or practicing Islam in some shape or form. So I was just like, you know, everybody was stunned, you know, because all of the other times it's been like far right, racist, Nazis, like, you know, white supremacists that have done this stuff. But now it's one of their own, you know, they're doing this stuff. And it was like, it was outrage over here. And I was just like, you see, Christianity as a whole is a lukewarm Judaism. So why am I saying this? I'm saying this because Christianity is built upon the prophet Jesus, Yeshua, and his life and his adventures, like everything that he said and did. It is God, of course, but they believe that Jesus and God is basically the same person. So the whole religion is based on a prophet, basically. And that prophet, like many people keep saying, he was an Israelite. He was a Jew. His parents was a Jew. He was born a Jew. He even stated in the books that when he came to preach to people, he came for the chosen people of Israel. That's what he said. And now you have like a little branch, a little side. It's not so little, I mean, Christianity is growing as well, but that is dedicated to this man that, you know, I just think that it's not hilarious, but I think like, imagine Jesus coming back, and he see that he has a whole new fan base, you know. I wonder how, I don't think like he would be upset, you know, nobody would be upset. He would be like, okay, that's nice to know that there are some people that, you know, rock with me like that. But it doesn't take the fact off that he was still a Jew. He came for them. Like when he was talking, the Bible wasn't existing even back then yet. He was talking from the Torah, you know, the Jewish religious book, basically. So this is one of the reasons I keep saying that Christianity is a lukewarm Judaism. They're very close to each other, but still not when it comes to a lot of stuff. Speaking about that, you have some people that actually believe, but I'm gonna say like this: Black people cannot be anti-Semitic, and the reason for that is because there are some people that believe that the Black people are the real Jews, not Jewish, ish. Jews, like they are the original Jews. And you have to take a lot of stuff in consideration here, like they will be like, okay, but this happened in the Middle East, huh? This was in Jerusalem and all of this. You have to take in consideration the continental shifts or whatever. I don't know how to say this word in English, basically when the countries divide after a while, and they shift away and move and all of this stuff. You have to take in consideration that, then you have to take in consideration that the original man, the original people was African, Black. Everything started and came from Africa. So you can't, like, whenever you're talking about history or anything like that, it started there. No matter what you think, personally, if you have any supremacist thought or whatever like that, it started. It got inspired from there and all of this stuff. So basically when stuff like this happened, like, like Kanye West, when he got canceled for saying something about the Jewish society or something like that, he said something and he got canceled. I was like, okay, if you take off the fact that there are some people that believe that Black people, especially the Black people that are in America, not the African, but the African American, that they are the so-called Israelites, the real Jewish people, or the real Jews. If you don't think about that fact and you just think about history, like the last part of history, not that far back, but the last part of history with, World War II and Hitler and all of this stuff. If you think about that, was it any Black people or any other ethnicity, Latin people or Asian people or anything like that, that were burning Jews in a chamber or harassing them or making life hard for the Jewish people? It wasn't. It was mostly European white people that was doing this. Do you understand? You had like Polish people that didn't want to have anything to do with the Jews, and they were harassing and putting them on concentration camps and all of this stuff. And you had the Germans doing the same thing. But now when we roll forward and we are in present time, like if you are any ethnicity, and you say something, it's like, oh, that's anti-Semitic. And it's like, okay, but why are you gonna cancel me? Why are you gonna be upset with me? Like, historically wise, my people have never done you guys anything. Do you understand? So just put the anger where the anger should be, basically, I don't know. That was just a little side note. Okay, so statement number 5, Buddhism, Hinduism, and all of these other, they have like a umbrella phrase for all of these beliefs, or what did I write here? I wrote that they are better accepted by Western people because it gives them the place, the space to be their own gods. Basically, they don't have to worship somebody else. They don't have to be beneath somebody else, and some would say like, no, like even if you practice these so-called philosophies, you still like pray to these deities. Maybe you don't call them gods like that, and you don't think that they can interfere and judge and like they are authorities like that, but you still pray to them for guidance, for luck, for fortune, for whatever, there will be some people that will say that, and in some instance it is correct, but I think it was Buddha that said something, that it was only cowards that were praying to a god or something like that. Like you don't believe in yourself so much that you will put basically your free will in somebody else's hands like that, you know? So I mean, Buddhism is just a little part. Like I said, they have an umbrella term for all of this. But I'm not joking. So I was like, if you see, like most of the time when Western people convert or start believing in something else that doesn't originate from them, I feel like they are very fast to adopt the so-called spiritual part of religion, you know? And one of the main reasons I think is like that is because of whatever I wrote here, that they don't have any authority above them that they have to kneel down to, and you know, I have to behave good because this thing will all punish me if I don't act like this and do like this. So they can basically be their own gods. So it's a little bit like a god complex. Do you understand? And if you look at it historically wise, like when you do all of this stuff and you think that you are basically sent here on earth to, I don't know, save this wild creature called human beings in another, whatever. Do you understand? It's gonna be hard to worship something else, you know, when you view yourself as a god. Most interracial relationships are based on, what did I write here? Based on self-hate or fetishization. I hope I pronounced that word correct. Fetishization. What do I mean? I mean, and this is based on own experiences, is based on interviews I've seen, is based on studies that has been proven and stuff. And it is often that people, like if you have been excluded from your own society, your own community or something like that, it's like that African, they have a proverb, like an African, what did they say? They said, the child that is not embraced by their own village is one day gonna burn down the village to feel that warmth. I think it was in that Wakanda movie too, but it is actually a real statement. And this is so correct. Like, let's say that you are disabled or homosexual or whatever you are, and your own community is disowning you. We don't want to have anything to do with you. You are a disgrace, shame, and just treat you bad. Like, would you want to have anything to do with these people? You will have a sour taste in your mouth when it comes to these people, you know? So you will basically go to the opposite. Especially if that opposite welcomes you, you know, it will be like, you will be like Mowgli, you know, more or less. So yeah, so from own experiences and all that, most interracial relationships, maybe not always self-hate, you know, you can still be like, you know what, I love how I look, I love my aesthetics, I love my personality, my culture and everything like that, and still be attracted to somebody else, of course. But most of the time is based on fetishization. It is. Like they had like an interview that I saw on YouTube. They were walking around asking a lot of German women, I think, because apparently black men are very popular there. So they were asking a lot of German women, what is it with black men, like, why do you find them so attractive? And these girls was naming everything in the book except like the stuff that you would think matters. Like, you know, like African men or black men, they have like a good personality, they're funny, they're witty, you know, like, I don't know, you know, they're smart, they know how to take care of the family, they're very masculine, or they're in tune with this. And do you understand? They were going straight to whatever all of us was thinking. Like they have the big and the skin color, like fetishization. Like you look at somebody and you don't see them as a person, you see them as a walking sexual fantasy almost. Do you understand? And more or less, this is true. Like how much you want to be like, nah, no, not for me. I love my girlfriends or husbands or wives, this and that and that and this. It is still fetishization. Like it's grounded in fetishization. I don't know how to explain it, but you know what I mean, you know? You have some people that will only date a certain race of people, a certain not genre, a certain caliber of people. And I saw another interview about this, and this girl was basically saying that her ex was like, all of his exes looked the same kind of, you know? And personality wise, it was, you know? But all of them basically looked the same, and I was like, wow, this person, like, they don't give a shit about anything. Like, they just want to have the aesthetics of it, you know? I'm attracted to this, so I want this. And whatever this comes with, I don't give a fuck. I just want the shell. That's what I feel when it comes to most interracial relationships, that they are based on either self-hate, fetishization, or a mix of those two together. Very seldom it is just love, straight love, like, oh, you know? Most disability, and quote me now, okay? Most disabilities are not genetically, what did I write here? Are not genetically inherited, but rather like lab made. So, okay. Like a week ago, I had an interview with one of my former classmates that have her disabilities, and I shared my so-called ADHD, and I even mentioned that this diagnosis, I take it with an inch of salt, you know, because I had another conversation with a coworker when it came to this. I said, when I was back in Ecuador, I remember talking to a guy, and I was mentioning that I had ADHD, and he was very fast to be like, don't use this Western terminology on yourself so quick, you know? Don't be so fast to put yourself in those boxes. And the way that he explained it, it made so much sense. Let me just say that, the way he explained it. He was basically saying that you need to take in consideration a lot of stuff. And most of the time when these people put diagnosis and stuff like that, it's one size fits all. And if it doesn't fit, they will squeeze you into that. So let me just give an example. Me and this coworker, we were basically saying that, okay, we live in Scandinavia, Sweden right now. You can go online and you can see a lot of interviews where foreigners, even American as foreigners, will say stuff like, oh, they're very closed off, they're very introverted, they're very, you know, like, it's not a lot of emotions here. And I would say like, okay, so imagine if a so-called Scandinavian person, European person, like no Scandinavian specifically, would travel and decide to move to a place that is very extroverted naturally, like let's say Spain, you know, where people, it's still Europe, but it's another part, you know, where people are more outgoing, more talkative, you know, like it was another interview, they were saying like, here people can go to the coffee shop and after 5-10 minutes you're sitting next to a stranger and they're telling you about their divorce and everything. Like they're very open here, you know. And let's say that a so-called Scandinavian person with the typical Scandinavian personality and all of this would move there and get so-called diagnosed by their doctors and their shrinks. So what would you think? Like just imagine, what kind of diagnosis do you think that they would get based on how they are naturally? Me and my coworkers were talking about it, and we were basically saying like, yeah, they would have gotten some kind of like, you have like social anxiety, or you're introverted, or you don't have like the common, how do you say? Like you don't know how to interact with people. You don't have the social skills, you know? So maybe they would take it as far as saying that they are on some kind of spectrum because they don't know how to interact with people. And then I was like, okay, and then imagine like a Spanish person that is very forward and all of this stuff. they would move to another country. Somebody would diagnose them with like ADHD or something, say you are too hyper, you talk fast, and you all over the place. Or diagnose like a Italian person that speaks a lot with their hands. They would say that you have maybe some kind of tics or something, like you can't sit still, like you always have to show with your body, you know? And I was like, these are not disabilities. These are, they have another word for it, but I can't remember now in English. And basically, this is what the guy from Ecuador was saying. When I mentioned I have ADHD, he was like, no. You are a black African girl that lives in a European country, you know, so they have their measurements, they have their scales and everything, and they will try to make you fit that somehow. And it's like, it doesn't always fit. And you know, these people, like, it's so lucrative, this business, when it comes to putting people on medication for fucking the whole lifespan. Like, you will go through from childhood to adult just eating these pills that have amphetamine and all kinds of stuff, you know, just to calm somebody down, to not disturb the social order that they have decided that this is what we want in our country, you know. So basically, just go where you fit in, go where you can match the energy with the other people, you know. So it's not always there is something wrong with you. Sometimes you are just in the wrong environment. And it's not to say that that environment is wrong. It's just that that environment and you are not suited for each other, basically. So what I was saying here, this was this was a conversation I had with one of my, when I studied nursing back in the days, I had one of my classmates, she was from Ukraine. She told me a story about a friend of hers that had 2 children, and she said the first child decided to vaccinate the first child. And after a while, that child became very inwards, you know, going from being a you know, so-called regular kid, having a good eye contact and all of this stuff, to being all like in space almost. And so they figured that maybe it had something to do with the vaccination. So they decided that the second kid was not going to vaccinate the kid, and the kid didn't have any of those so-called issues. So this is a story that this classmate shared with me, and I was like, you know what? We are studying nursing right now, and the agenda here is that, you know, it's not like a holistic, they don't have like a lot of, it's based on holistic. We had like one chapter, one program, one course that was going through that a little bit. But basically, the agenda is that, okay, you're gonna help people get better. And how do you help them get better? Medication. So you have to study a lot of chemistry and medication and stuff like that. So I was like, imagine if our teachers was hearing us right now, what we are saying, they would have thrown us out of the whole program, you know? Because she was basically saying that she didn't believe that some of these so-called disabilities, like autism, ADHD, and all of this stuff, that it was like genetically, like it was so-called natural. She meant that this was something that, you know, something went wrong somewhere, you know, and usually it's not genetically. Like, even if it's like, okay, yeah, but my great-great-grandmother had it, so it makes sense why my child had it. Okay, but your great-great-grandmother must have got it from somewhere to begin with, right? It was not that she just woke up one day and was born with this. Like, somewhere something has happened. Most of the times when you look at these so-called documentaries, and they're talking about people that have all kinds of disabilities right now, and this is from back in the days, they lived in institutions and they were giving them all kinds of weird ass drugs and putting them in mental institutes when it was nothing wrong with them, basically just creating this. So I don't know, bruh. I know, like, I seen disability, believe me, I seen, you know, and it is real. Like, it exists like that, it is real. But I'm saying how it started is not natural like that. And I think it's fucked up. Like, if you can find medication to make it mild, you know, like, okay, this person have ADHD. Okay, so if we give them this kind of pill, they will come down a little bit and be so-called normal. Then it's like, okay, but why can't you just go back to the drawing board and make that so-called pill last longer, you know, or be more effective, so they don't have to take it every single day for decades, you know? Just give them like one treatment, and whatever that is not functioning, then get it to function again. You know, like, if you can do step one, you can evolve to step two eventually, and step three, and it's like, yeah, okay, this is why you have science and all of this stuff, and people doing researches, and it takes time, and it takes this, and it takes that. I get it, but it's like, come on, huh? Come on. It is money, big money in pharmaceuticals, you know? Black people are not alone or the only one that have suffered extreme injustice. Natives and indigenous people have it equal, if not worse, sometimes. Okay. If you look at history, you will see that, like, if we take the native people of the Americas, Canada, United States, we can even put Australia and all of these other places in there, you know, like, these countries, this territorium was God-given to the native people. Just like Europe, some parts of Europe was naturally given or inhabited naturally, not by force or anything like that, to European people. Do you understand? Like, everybody, every group have their soil, their ground. Like, this is our inhabitant, like, not inhabitant, this is our place, basically, you know? This is our God ordained space from the day of dawn. And you will just look, like, historically wise, and be like, okay, look how America looks like now. When you say America, the first thing that comes up in your mind is a Caucasian white person, huh? Everybody else gets to be called African American, Latin American, Asian American, but the Caucasians, they are just American. And it's like, is that fair? Anyways, that was a side note. What I wanted to say was that, you know, Africa as a whole, it is a continent. I don't think a lot of people understand how big Africa is. Like, I will try to find a picture of the actual map, and I will put it there. And you will see how many countries, how many, everything that can fit into that. Like, do you know how humongous that is? Anyways, you don't have any African country that I know of that has been so-called raped and stolen so much and gentrified so much as America's has. Do you understand? Like, you would have, like, some parts, like, I will give an example. You have some parts like Egypt, north of Africa, Egypt, Libya, Morocco, all of these places has been invaded by Middle Eastern people. Like, Africa as a whole is a black African countries. The inhabitants are melanated, deeply melanated people from the day of dawn. So the north part, historically, they haven't been there for that long. I think when the fuck did they came? They basically colonized. Just like European colonized, they colonized as well. But the difference was that they stayed and they had, you know, started to mix with the so-called original people, and now you have some kind of intermix when you see the so-called Egyptians and so forth. But just think about it. As a whole, Africa is a black continent, is a deep melanated with kinky, do you understand? The different shades, of course, different shades, different hair types, different everything. But for the most part, it is African. So how come this area, this northern area, you speak Arabic? That's why, like, sometimes when I see, like, you know, like these Egyptians that are living there right now, as soon as somebody, especially like a black actor or singer, or somebody do something that is like, you know, pro-Egypt, and they will show like the real Egyptian face look like this, and all of this, the so-called Arabs of Egypt, they get very upset. And it's like, why are you being upset though? Do you understand? Like, even some other parts of the Middle East, they don't even accept them. Like, I met somebody, like, this was back in Cyprus, one of our first vacations with one of my friends. And we met two guys that said that they were from Egypt. Most of the time, these people, they don't consider themselves as African. They say, no. You know, the only time they're Africans is when it comes to the soccer. We are the African champions. We won the, you know, but all of the time, like, they are something else. They are Middle Eastern, they are Arabs. Do you understand? Then they know their background. So anyhow, so these guys, they were talking about the other Middle Eastern people, other Arabs, didn't consider them as Arabs like that or something like that. Like, they saw them basically like the gypsies, you know, like they were like beneath them or something. Like the way that they speak Arabic is not like the original, like how it should sound and stuff like that. And I'm like, do you understand? Just think about it. Like, just be honest. But anyhow, what I was trying to say is that is the only place, I think, that has been so-called raped and colonized and, you know, gentrified to the level where you go there now and you will question the original people. The original people was the Sudanese, like the Nubian people. Those are the real Egyptians. Do you understand? And this is no mumbo jumbo. This is straight facts. You go to Sudan, you go to Mali, the empire, you will see the same as pyramids. Do you understand? Huh? And the other deities or whatever that they had, like, you will see the nose. None of the nose are the typical Arabic nose. It is like mine. Do you understand? It is like this. This is how the Egyptians looked. Do you understand? But anyhow, that was a side note. What I wanted to say was that that is the only part in Africa that that has been taken over like that, that has been wiped out. Most of the parts, like, you will still go to some West African places, some South African places, and they would live amongst their so-called the people that came and, you know, colonized. They will live amongst them somehow. They have found like a way to be like, okay, we're here together, you know. But you will still see that this is a black soil, like this is an African soil, you know. And you will still hear the native language, and you will still see the native looks and all of this stuff. And then you go to places like America, and you go to places like Canada and stuff like that. Like, it is like finding a leprechaun to find like an indigenous, like real ass native that is like, do you understand? Because they are the original people from there. And they have been wiped out. Their language, their culture, their everything. Like, when you think about Canada, Australia, or anything like that, you don't even think about these faces anymore. Like these native indigenous faces. You think about something totally different. And I mean, so this is what I keep saying when I'm like, black people are not the only people that has been suffering injustice when it comes to that. There are some people that have been suffering far more worse. And I will say that these are the indigenous people. Do you understand? Imagine now, like in America, people are fighting over who is American and who is not, and who has the rights to be here and who has not. And it's like, I had this conversation with a coworker, and I said, you know what? I feel like number one is the indigenous native people. They have the first and final say when it comes to anything. Do you understand? That's what I feel. And historically too. Do you understand? And then along that is the Etlings. You know, which one are closest related to them? It's the, you know, the Mexican, do you understand? the so-called Latin or whatever, Hispanic or whatever you would say, like they are closest related to them, you know? So they, number two. Number three, black people, because they came there. Some people will say that they have been there historically a long time, before colonization and slavery and stuff like that. And that is a whole nother story that somebody else can get into much more, because I don't know that story much, if I'm gonna be honest. But from what I know is that black people were forced from Africa to all of these places without their consent, you know, and they helped to build up their nation, that country. So much of the stuff you see, you know, is built on black hands, black labor, free black labor. So I feel like, okay, they have a place to be. Like ain't nobody can say stuff, you know? And then after them, everybody else comes, you know? Because you have a lot of other foreigners that are living there. Everybody else can come. But that is the hierarchy that should be correct. That I feel personally. But it's a lot of like, you know, oh, black people had this, they gone through this, they gone through that. It's like, bro, there are people that they hold. Imagine like you waking up, you travel to Africa, and it is totally white. Or it's only like Chinese people, or it's only, do you understand? And you will see like small percentage of black people. But that is what happened to the native indigenous people of America, Canada, Australia, and so on and so forth. So I mean, bro, they, personally, I feel like they have gone through much more. But I'm not here to compare struggles. Do you understand? I'm not here to compare struggles, but I'm just saying, Eastern European people, or Eastern European women, to be specifically, are the most attractive European women. But what did I write? But it's short-lived, okay? So coming from my mouth, not being Eastern European myself, a lot of people will probably be upset and be like, you don't have any say in that. It's like me being a white Caucasian person talking about black beauty or brown beauty. And it's like, you guys already do. You know, you put your beauty standards all over the world without asking people. But anyhow, I mean, everybody has their beauty standards, you know? Everybody have their beauty standards, more or less. Like if you don't think about how they be infiltrated by Western beauty standards, everybody has their beauty standards. I remember my aunt saying that it was some part in West Africa, because I have, you know, like my gum here is very dark, you know? It's naturally very pigmented. And you will see some other people that have very pink, like it's very light pink. And she was saying that it was some parts in West Africa, even other countries, where people were tattooing. They were making this dark on purpose. They wanted it to be black, you know, like that was their beauty standard, you know? And it was for different reasons, you know? It makes your white teeth looks whiter, or just aesthetically, you know, it was more beautiful. So everybody has their own beauty standards, but I would say, like, you know, the typical European beauty standards, you know, the eyes symmetrically, this, and nose and forehead. And I feel like most European, they don't even go under that standard. Like they have been putting it up, like this is what we find, like this is beauty. If you have these measurements, you are considered beautiful. It's not a lot of Europeans that go under that. But when you look at Eastern European women, most of the time they actually fulfill that, you know? But it's just like between certain ages, and then afterwards it goes downhill. And this is not only me saying this or interviews that I've seen. This is their own people that I heard this from. So I'm basically repeating what your men have been saying. All women are very beautiful, but it's short, you know? So you have to catch them while you can, you know, because afterwards it's like, and I'm not being age discriminative in any shape or form and saying that, you know, when you get older, automatically you lose your beauty or anything like that. Absolutely not. You have some groups of people, they get more and more attractive, more beautiful by the day, by the decade, you know? I won't say which groups they are, but I think you guys know which groups they are. They just, you know, they're like fine wine. They get more beautiful. That's it. So it has nothing to do with age. It's just that it goes very quick. This is what they're talking about. Like it's not a smooth transition. It's like overnight, like a fruit almost. Yeah, I remember an interview I saw. This was in England. It was one guy that was being interviewed, and it was two women, two English women, and an English man, I think, interviewing this guy. And he was basically saying that he was like Eastern European women, most of the time very attractive. And these two British ladies, they went bananas. They were so upset and talking about, yeah, but you know, that's not the standard, something. They were very upset. And he was, I don't know, I will see if I can find the interview, basically. But I'm like, everybody's allowed to have their opinions and type and everything, right? Without shitting on somebody else. Yeah. Calling yourself a nutritionist, I can't even pronounce it, nutritionist, yes, or work in the healthcare without practicing herbal medicine is like studying chemistry without the organic chemistry part. So what do I mean? I'm gonna keep this short. This is what I mentioned with the nursing stuff. We went into like herbal medicine and old school remedies and stuff like that. Just a little course, you know, just a small course. But the teacher mentioned that this was where it started, you know. So you need to know the history of stuff to understand where we are now. So basically what I'm talking about is that when you meet a doctor or any healthcare professional, and they're gonna give you some kind of health advice, you know, how to anything, cure depression, lose weight, whatever, you know, and they don't have the herbal, they call it something, they have another word for it, and they don't have that background, like that understanding. It can't be like, it's not a result that will last long. Let's just say that. They will give you like a short-term result. You will keep taking these medications for God knows how long until something. But if you want like a solution, a real solution, you have to take all of these components in consideration, basically. You know, because everything starts from the soil, literally. You know, and you have like doctors and everything right now starting to study like ancient, you know, like how the natives and indigenous people from all over the world, how they are curing different type of disease. And most of the time everything is out in nature, you know, everything is not lab made or anything like that. It is pure nature, you know, like it starts from the gut. And then, do you understand? So yeah, I don't have much more to say when it comes to that. I feel like you should be well-rounded overall when it comes to most stuff here in life, but yeah. Statement number something, I don't know. Okay, you know the conversations that some people sometimes have when they're talking about slavery, and they mention that the slaves that you had like some Africans that was basically selling their fellow sisters and brothers into slavery, and that they took the so-called weak ones and sent them away, or some may say they took the strong ones because they could endure whatever was coming. So the discussion is all over the place, the discussion when it comes to that, like what kind of slaves that was taken and if Black people had any part of that captivation, you know, process. So I was thinking, like, when it comes to white people, European people, and their descendants that are living now in places like United States, Australia, Canada, and so on and so forth. They are living in indigenous land, basically, like their ethlings. So I'm kind of curious, and I'm thinking, okay, so has anybody ever thought about this? Like, the kind of Europeans that stayed in Europe, because remember that most of the Europeans that went to Canada, United States, Australia, and all of this was often what you would consider the bottom of the barrel. Like most people know the story about the island in was it Australia, where like British people were sending like ex criminals and prostitutes and basically people that they didn't want in their society. They sent them away, so they ended up in Australia. So most of the descendants that are living in Australia today are basically former thieves, rapists, and all of this kind of stuff, like that was not wanted in their own so-called nations and countries. So I'm thinking that, okay, as time has gone and evolved, the kind of Etlings, the kind of white people that lives in these places now, like what is their ancestry then? You know, like when they come and visit Europe, do they feel inferior somehow and feel like, okay, so the Europeans that stayed here during like hunger, because you had a lot of Europeans that were fleeing to America and all of this, you know, because of, you know, they had hunger stuff going on over here, you know, and people were starving to death. So I was thinking like those people that stayed here are they considered like the strong ones, you know, that was like, you know what, I'm not gonna leave my country, I'm not gonna leave my identity, my nation, I'm gonna stay here and pull through and, you know, we're gonna make it somehow. And the people that fled, were they like so-called the weak ones then, that was like considered, we're giving up, you know, like we can't make anything happen here, like anywhere else is better than this, you know, so let's just go, basically. Or is it that, okay, the ones that left was so-called the smart ones that was like, okay, we're not gonna stay here and wait for our demise or death, you know, we're gonna fight and try to find something better. I don't know how it's viewed, but I was like, it's an interesting topic, because when it comes to slavery, like I said, most times when you have like a African American and an African, like when they have these discussions, like this topic always comes up, you know, people want to know like, okay, so what part did the black folks, the African folks, the ancestors, what part did they have in the slave trade, you know? Not as significant, you know, that they could have stopped it like that, you know? So it's not to put the blame or anything or divide even more, absolutely not. But I'm just saying that it's interesting to see then the Etlings of white people, you know, because you guys that are living in United States, Canada, and all of these places that are native land, indigenous land, God-given indigenous land. So you guys that are living there, you are just as much foreigner, immigrant, like any other group. The only difference is that maybe you came a few years earlier than this group or that group, but in the end of the day, everybody is an immigrant there. So I was just curious, like, this would be funny if any American that have been traveling to Europe, like, do you feel at home when you come here? Do you feel accepted? Like, how do you view other Europeans? Do you see them as, we are not the same at all, we are too different everything? Like, or do you see that you guys are related somehow? Because I know that some people do like ancestry research, like they want to know what kind of ancestry they have, and they will find out that they are 2% Irish and 5% whatever, you know, and they will travel there and they will want to know more about the history and stuff like that. So I mean, like, when you are searching for your history, don't you want to know like when you came to the Americas? When I say the America, is umbrella for all of it, Canada, you name it. Aren't you interested, like, what made your ancestors leave Europe, you know? And what made other people stay here? Because I know, I have lived in Europe, like I said, for 2.5 decades, a long time. And I have been traveling to the most European countries and living in some of them. So I have seen a lot. And I can say that Americans are viewed, it depends. I would feel like here in Scandinavia, you have this big brother syndrome that Scandinavians, they look up to Americans a little bit. It is changing a little bit now, but back in the days when I was a teenager and stuff like that, everybody was like, as soon as you spoke like English with that accent, you were so cool, you know, they wanted to know more about you, like everybody, like it was astonishing. But now it feels like it's dying out a little bit. It's not so cool anymore, you know, it's not so hip or whatever. But in other places like Italy, France, Americans overall, black, white, yellow, whatever you guys are, just hearing the way you guys talk and everything, they don't mess with you in any shape or form. Like, and it has to do with power structures. I think it's a lot of old egos that are still roaming. You know, we wanted our language to be the official language that was going to be spoken all over the world, you know, so it's a lot of components to why people may act or be a certain way towards others. But I just think it's interesting. So let me know. White America, white Canada, white Australia, have you been searching, looking up your ancestry? What was the reason for your ancestors to come to the place that you are today, the place that you call home today? Was it struggle? What was it that made them come? And what was it that made you guys keep staying? You know, it would be interesting for me and for a lot of people to know, you know? Yeah. Was it the strong ones? Was it the weak ones? Was it just situations? What was it? Oh, this one is controversial. There are only two sexes, and those two have many terms under the umbrella gender. Okay, and then I wrote, a beloved part has many names, but still maintain its core function. Okay, I can't even read what I'm writing sometimes. So what am I saying here? You know, like you have these political correct people saying that there are multiple genders, but they will be like, okay, there are two sexes, you know, it's dick, vagina, man, woman, you know, but when it comes to genders, there are multiple. You can be this, you can be that, you can be whatever you want to be, basically. And I'm trying to be like, nah, I'm not buying it. I still believe like there are so many people on the line that will explain this so simple. You know, I would just give like one or two examples. It was was it a man or something? He said that the day you die and they put your corpse, your body somewhere, and hundreds of years later, somebody would dig up that body part, you know? You laying beside, I don't know, whatever. What do with these archaeologists, like what will they find? They would either see that this person that we found here carried some kind of uterus of some shape or form, like they could birth life. And this other one was the giver of somehow, like this was a male, you know? So there are only two genders that they would find. And you can call this gender sex and be like, yeah, it is two sexes, but you know, and it's like, okay, but in the end of the day, it's potato. Do you understand? Like you are basically giving, you are basically giving multiple different names to two different parts. This sounded so much better in my head. I'm not kidding with you. I had this conversation with one of my coworkers as well, and I don't know what did we say. No, but it was basically like, yeah, it is two genders. Like even like most of these people that are so-called born in the wrong body or something like that, it's not like they have like a whole buffet of different genders or different sex to choose from. Do you understand? So it's either somebody that is biologically born a woman that wanna transition and be a male, or vice versa. Do you understand? The only time that you have something in between is like, I had an acquaintance of mine that said that he was what you would call a hermaphrodite. So basically had both genders more or less. But even if you have both genders more or less, it's not exactly 50-50, you know? You can't like impregnate yourself like that. So it would be like if you have a dick and a vagina, some part of that will function more. It will be like 60-40, 70-30 or something like that with the functioning part. Do you understand? It won't be 50-50. So I've seen a lot of discussions about this online, and I'm not discriminating at all when it comes to all of this, but somebody gotta say it as it is sometimes. And it's like, bro, you're right, it is two sexes, but these sexes, when you're talking about gender, gender is the umbrella of these sexes. So you have a lot of terms, you know, but in the end of the day, they're describing these two sexes. Do you understand? That's it. Okay, I have some statements here that I think I would just like skip because I feel like I'm repeating myself. I'm saying the same stuff but in different ways, okay? So we'll see. I think I'm gonna skip some here. But which one? Let me just jump on to okay, this one may be controversial too, I don't know. Asians are not the most intelligent people on the planet. They just have the discipline or very good PR. Okay, so what am I saying? I'm basically saying what I just said. Like, you have these stereotypical thoughts about different people, different ethnicities. Everybody have it more or less. Even if you're like, oh, I'm not judgmental, I don't judge people on this and judge people on that. You have within yourself a little bit. Like, some people will make you clutch to your purse a little bit tighter, and some other people will make you want to ask them questions, and other people make you want to, do you understand? Everybody have it more or less. It is what it is. But when it comes to this, I would say that this is a positive stereotype, but it can be very hurtful too. But basically saying that Asian people, they are very intelligent and they have done a lot of studies and everything, you know, trying to figure out like how come that they are so fast developed when it comes to this. Like, you have like in an early age people figuring out like hard stuff that people in university in Western society and stuff like that are trying to figure out, you know. And I would say the reason for this is not because they are genetically superior in any shape or form, that they are smarter or anything like that. They just have the discipline. I saw a documentary where they were talking about like very early, like already like here in kindergarten, people are playing and, you know, it's like a daycare kind of, but they, in some parts, like they start early, like everything that they do has like a thought. Like if we're gonna jump rope or something like that, something as simple as that, we will have some back thought, something, you know, that okay, we gotta do this with let's have math, apply math at the same time. How many times are you jumping? If you jump out now, then the other one jumps in, then add on to that. Like, they will make everything that you can apply that later on in life, basically. So it's not just there to waste time. It's basically learning, you know, learning by acting and living and just, do you understand? So I would say like the discipline, they have discipline, a lot more discipline than other people maybe. And they have good PR, meaning that you have a lot of people across the world. Like, I saw this on Instagram. It was like a Mexican kid, a girl that had like her, what was it? She was smarter than Einstein, basically. And she was not even 10 years old. She was smarter than Einstein. This was a Mexican kid. And then you have like a lot of Nigerian kids too, you know, like West Africans or whatever, that been inventing stuff and doing like, do you understand? Getting degrees faster than, I don't know, you know? Not to say that this stuff makes you intelligent or smart. Intelligence is, like I said, it's not black or white like that. But they don't have the same publicity. Like, you will have these people that are so smart, that have been doing, like, just think about ancient Egypt. Like, people are still trying to figure out how they built the pyramids. Do you understand? And they won't give any credits to the people and be like, yeah, the people back then were smarter than our ancestors. Like, while we were throwing stones and having these stone buildings and stuff like that, they had geometrically, like, precise. Do you understand? And you have the same, like, you go to, it's in Cancun or something like that. They have their own little pyramid over there too and all of this stuff. But I'm just saying that they have better PR, better publicity. They publish, like, as soon as somebody of their own do something smart, they will billboards and it will be on TV, Instagram. Everybody's gonna know this prodigy kid, this prodigy person. But as soon as it's another ethnicity, I feel like other ethnicities, they're a little bit more humble, maybe. And they don't feel the need to be like, you know, because they're like, we already know we're smart or we're intelligent. We don't have to try to mention this to everybody and everything at all times, you know? Like, it's very subtle. It's very quiet. I remember, this is a little side note. I went to like an after school program. This was to better my grades so I could apply to university. So I studied physics, and I had such a hard time with physics. I'm not kidding with you. Like, it was so hard for me, and I wasn't the only one. We had another girl that she and I became friends. Her dad was from Morocco, I think, and her mother was from Sweden. So she was 50-50. And we were just laughing, and I'm gonna show you some of the memes. Like, she would just show me a picture and I would just burst out, start laughing. And most of the time it was because we didn't understand what he was talking about. The teacher we had, he used to teach physics in university, so he was used to that. So coming down to this level, you could see that he was very uninspired. He was one of those teachers, like, you didn't want to raise your hand and ask any questions, because he would humiliate you and be like, but why, how don't you understand if you do this and you do, you know? That was that kind of teacher. Anyhow, we had one of our tasks and it was aluminium, you know? We had to weigh it. So one of the first lessons was to learn about, what was it called? Density, mass. Basically, we're gonna count out the mass, and he gave us some tools and some, you know, like, okay, try this, try that, but I want everybody to try, okay, and see what you come up with. And she and I ended up in the same team, and I was like, oh crap, you have, you know, at least like one more. So we were looking around trying to find like a third person that wanted to join our little group, and we saw this Asian guy, and we went to him straight away and was like, hey. And he was so funny, you know, because he was like, I don't know anything, I don't know, you know. The way that he was reacting, I was like, bruh, poor thing. He has probably like gone through this a lot of times, you know, people just assuming that he is clever, he is smart because of his ethnicity, you know. And he had no clue, he either. Like, he was like, no, I don't know anything, I don't, you know. So we were laughing because how he reacted, because this was our reaction as well. So she and I, anyhow, we tried, and somehow, I don't know, by the grace of God, the universe just aligned perfectly. We came up with an answer that was actually correct, and we don't know how we did this, you know, we don't know, because we were just trying different stuff, and we came up with this answer, and we asked the teacher, it was like, okay, can you come and see if we are close to the answer or if we are far away? And he was looking at it, and he was looking at us, looking at it, and he was like, how did you come up with this? So basically, we were right. He told us later on the numbers was correct, but he could see that we didn't know how we came up with it. And he was like, I want you guys to explain how you came up with this. So she and I was like, oh, we're not that stupid after all. But now we had to go back and be like, okay, how the fuck did we come up with this? It was harder than coming up with the numbers. Let me just say that. But that was the side note that, you know, you guys have, it's not to be rude or anything like that, you know, you have intelligent people all over the world, but I'm just saying that some people have better publicity, you know, that as soon as you do something so-called spectacular, it will be pictures, videos, everything. Oh, miracle person, prodigy kid, you know, while on the other hand, you have billions of people, millions of people overseas that are doing far more greater stuff, but nobody's talking about it because they're raised with humbleness. You know, they raised with like this is normal. Like, why should we do a whole interview, a whole documentary about this? You know, I don't know. It's up to everybody. I don't even know which number I'm on right now, so I'm just gonna put it later. Maybe I would just okay. So what did I write here? As soon as you read or someone say it's scientifically proven, any nonsense can get to the masses. So this was a quote I saw on Instagram a long time ago, and I was like, this is the truth, bro. I don't even have to explain it much more. But I feel like as soon as somebody say like, it is scientifically proven that if you sleep 1 hour per day, that you will live longer, and people would just buy into that. You can basically put scientifically proven first and anything else after that, and people would just buy into that. You know, you create a product. So this sugar and Kool-Aid and little mixture that I have here is scientifically proven to whatever boost your immune system, and you have some idiots be like, yeah, it's scientifically, that means that is, you know, it's straight from the gods almost, it is written in stone, it is and it's like, no, this is just one way, you know, to discern stuff. It is just one way to discern stuff. Discern, my English. Do you understand? So something being scientifically proven, you know, with science, like even science can be so-called unproven. Do you understand? They had, was it like back in like World War II, they literally had paid scientists that went out saying that it was correct, it was right to torment and kill the Jews, the Jewish people, you know, because they were this, they were that, they came with diseases and they were dangerous to society and all of this stuff. And people believe them because you have scientists going out with their measurements and everything saying that these people are this, that. Do you understand? So this is why I keep saying, just be a little bit, you know? Like, how many times haven't, even like this whole COVID situation, I'm not gonna be like that. It was a lot of skeptics this time. I would just tell you that people are not easily bought this time around when it comes to stuff like this, you know? They will be like, yeah, I see, you know, but I need more, you know? I need more. Because we know that people have agendas. We know people get paid to say and do and, you know, mixture with stuff. So it gotta be more. I wrote that if outer life, you know, extraterrestrials of any shape or form existed and would visit this earth, then people, then the people that is so, just cut it. I will take a new one. If outer life existed and would visit this earth, the people in the so-called power position will be suffering the most. Hence why they build the so-called bunkers to prolong their so-called faith or so what do I mean? It's been a little bit, it's been some memes circling around talking about the government finally coming out saying that aliens do exist, and everybody's like, we don't give a shit. We have big problems to think about right now, to be concerned about something that we already had some kind of in the background. But I would only say that when it comes to extraterrestrial life, or like outer intelligence, I have my theories, and my theories is that we already have them amongst us. We already do have them amongst us, but I feel like the ones that are among us, they are not the so-called good ones, because they're not helping in any shape or form, especially not the people in need, the people that are suffering or anything like that. You see the rich getting richer and wealthier, and it's just more corruptions and messy. So I'm just like, I think we already had this so-called extraterrestrial life here, and the only reason why the government is even interested in going out with a statement like this is because maybe the ones that are here now or are coming are the so-called good ones that are trying to balance this out, and they are a little bit afraid, because now it will be some kind of whatever. So I just basically wrote that the people in power positions here, they have been hoovering and taking much more than they should, and just putting people in messy situations, in what I mean. These people, they are not safe. I don't think that they are safe. Like, imagine yourself being a visitor, you as you are right now, going to another planet, and you see how segregated and divided and just uneven stuff are, and you understand which people that are the root to that. Would you want to help them? I'm just saying. So that explains why most of these so-called rich people and people that are sitting in power positions, they have the little getaways, the little bunkers that they have been, like, I don't know, I heard like Elon Musk and a lot of other celebrities, they have been paying like millions, if not billions, to be like, if anything would happen, they have their own little ship or a little society underground where they can just disappear, and this is only for their selected few or whatever. It's like, these people know that their days are numbered. She made me think twice. We had a good conversation when it came to this, and I was a little bit like hesitated. Should I keep this on, or should I, because she came with good stuff. What was it? I was basically saying that obesity affects direct and indirect, like poor people. And we were talking about, what do you call this? I'm so bad with these words. Shit. See, instant karma. No, but I was talking about communism, basically. Or we were talking about communism. And I was saying, okay, so these people that are against communism, what is it they want? Is it socialism then, and all of this stuff? And we were basically like going through back and forth the goods and the bads and all of this. And she told me that she had been studying a little bit of something with like nutrition, And me myself, I've been studying a little bit too, but not the way that she had. It was like a whole nother genre. And she was like, I understand what you mean when you say that, like obese people, like they are contributing to the so-called unbalanced society, because you have like, we import food and vegetables and all kinds of stuff from poor countries, and they have to mass produce this to meet the needs over here, because people are eating much more now than they did back in the days. They are eating more than is recommended, basically. Like just, the burgers, the drinks, everything is getting larger and larger and larger, And this is one of the other reasons why people are stepping in. Like some places, they have like their genetically modified food, because they can't have that. Like let's say you have tomatoes and it takes usually maybe like a month or two to grow these tomatoes organically. but the demand is so high because these people, they are eating much more than usually, like they should, and all of this. So now you have to like genetically modify this to fasten the process, make them bigger to fit the demands and all of this stuff. So I was basically saying that I feel like obesity, like if you're gonna talk about injustice, you know, you can't just be like, oh, if you order clothes from this store, they have people working in a factory and they're not getting paid enough and all of this stuff. It's like, it's not only when it comes to clothes and stuff like that. Like, this goes as deep as the food you take in and everything. Do you understand? Like, you contribute to this poverty, this whole fucked up ecosystem, basically. But she was, I wish I had like these conversations, like it should be two people back and forth. It would have been nice if she shared, because she was like, I understand what you mean, and to some degrees you're right, but you need to take in consideration, it was something. I'm gonna see if I remember it, and if I do, I'm gonna edit and put it in. Skinny people often have a very strong odor. Okay, so odor is a very strong smell, usually a bad smell. And why do I say that it's always often skinny people? There's no science for my part. It's only how do you say, experiences. Like I experienced like beautiful, tall, skinny, you know, women and men, you know, and when you come close to them, like their breath most of the time doesn't smell pleasant, or just like odors, like they have fancy clothes and everything, but you know, I remember it was like it was a job. This was a modeling job. I'm too short, I'm 165, but I was like, fuck it, I want to try anyways. So I applied for this model gig, and when I came there, everybody was like real models. Like they were like the length, the size. So we had to squeeze me into some of the clothes. It was crazy. I'm not kidding with you. I'm like, I'm never doing that again, but it was fun. Anyways, I'm telling you, most of the people there, they were smelly. They were smelly. And I was thinking about that. I was like, why is it often that it's like skinny people that have this odor? And then I was like, okay, if you think about meat, if you buy meat and you don't have any fat on that meat and you just let it rest outside like that, it gets like fermented or something like that. I don't know what it's called, but it smells bad. Like when you leave meat like that, you know? But when it's surrounded by fat, like that fat is giving some kind of protective something, you know? And it doesn't smell as bad. I don't know. So I feel like the skinny you are, like you have a high metabolism, like you burn fat easy, you know? So you basically like walking meat, walking smelly meat. I shouldn't be adding this one. I'm telling you, I'm gonna. But like I said, this program is called How to Get Canceled. And some of this stuff, like, it's true. I'm not alone saying or thinking this stuff. Earth and the concept life is like a massive plantation. Do I need to explain it? Most people know by now what a plantation is, right? And what people do there and how the daily routines are in a plantation. And then you just look at our so-called daily life and you put those two next to each other. So it's not to minimize any kind of injustice, slavery, or anything that has been happening back in the days. Absolutely not. Or happening still in some places. It's absolutely not to minimize that in any shape or form. But I'm just saying that this is a so-called upgraded version of a plantation that we are living in. The stimulation, not stimulation, I said that in another video. I think it's called simulation. Simulation. Okay, but the simulation theory makes more sense to me every day. You know, you have people that believe that we are not actually here. We are in another dimension, another sphere, another whatever you call it. And we have maybe so-called virtual reality glasses or something, you know, and we are basically having a so-called human experience here. And when this whole madness stops, they will just take off the goggles and voila, end of the trip, basically. And I'm not kidding with you, like, it is a lot of stuff that I've been seeing online, and I had this conversation with two of my coworkers. I feel bad for some of my coworkers, I'm gonna be honest, but some of them are cool. I mean, some of them are fake. They will smile in my face and talk shit, and I see I'm not stupid like that. But some of them are cool, to be honest. And we had this conversation. I think I will put the video up. I don't know. It's already 1 hour now. It's already 1 hour, but I wanna put the video up. And this lady, she was talking about cars basically, and she was like, if you have a regular car, you know, to open the other seat, you have to bend forward like that to open it, and that car can fit in the same lane as a big truck, as a bus, a double-decker bus, where you have like an aisle in the middle, you have people sitting on the right, people sitting on the left, and to reach the other space, like you can't. You have to go up, walk, and then you can reach it. And both of these vehicles can fit in the same lane. And the lane is not like, do you understand? Like if you put two regular cars in the same lane, they wouldn't fit. Do you understand? Hence why people honk, like move so I can pass you. But this big ass bus can fit. Like it sounds like you have like some people that were trying to explain this. I read the comments too. You will have some people that were trying to explain this. But if you're really thinking about it, this girl was basically saying like, this has to do with coding. Like whoever coded this whole system, this whole thing, coded it very good. Do you understand? For something like that to fit like that. And then you have other stuff like, you know, when you play games, you can only see like 180 degrees. Like you can't see what's going on behind you. You have to turn around, just like a Sims character, literally, to see what's going on behind you. But you, I don't know, bro. But I'm telling you, like, I want to have a conversation with somebody else about this in the future. Because it is a lot of theories. And the fun part is like, before people like that was thinking in this was considered cuckoo, you know, and all of this stuff. But the more people are sort of waking up and start to understand that it's a lot of stuff that's just been fed to us, you know, and they're questioning stuff and they don't just consume everything they see and hear. Stuff like this don't seem as cuckoo anymore, you know? Still doesn't make sense maybe, but it's not considered like you are a mental nutcase, you know? Okay, so this is very short. I'm not even gonna explain this one, but what did I write? I wrote that calling any other ethnicity a minority, any other ethnicity that is not European, calling them a minority is not correct. Because if you look at overall, like I said, Africa is humongous. Asia, you know, Southeast Asia and all of these humongous as well, and all of these places. And you may be a minority in the country that you decided to move to, that there are not many of your brethren and all that living there. But overall in this world, the minority is actually Caucasian white people. And to be honest, talking about Caucasian, even that word is not even white. Caucasian, what was it? Somebody said that this was the people from Afghanistan or something like that. It was like a group, or Kazakhstan or something like that, like Turkmenistan, that they were the original Caucasians, like people, like that's a word that comes from them, you know? So basically that word has been stolen, more or less. thought that Caucasian came from the word Caucasus, the mountains, the Caucasus Mountains, that the inhabitants were Caucasians. That's what I thought. But you live and you learn, right? And then you have another word that the Nazis used to, they were saying that they were, I know how to say it in Swedish, but I don't know how to say it in English, but it's maybe the same. Ariske, Aryans. They were saying that they were pure Aryans. They were, you know? And it's so funny because, like I said, my stepfather is Persian. And if you ask him, they are Aryans. So, and let's not keep digging in that. Like the whole Nazi symbol was it Hindu or Buddhist? But it's like an Indian something that stands for the sun or something like that. And they basically snatched that and made that into something evil as well. So I'm like, for being a so-called superior group like that, you have to steal a lot from so-called unsuperior people. I'm just saying. But I wrote that human being and humankind are more different than just the wording. Do you understand? So you would think that, yeah, it's person, personas, you know, but yeah, some of you guys know what I mean. Some of you guys know exactly what I mean, but it is a difference, all right? Human. So this is extra. White people stands for over 90% of the sex tourism in every shape or form, but yet get a lot of slack. So what do I mean? I mean, me, I have been traveling a lot, like I said, and I would want to have like a separate video on that, just talking about everything that I experienced and saw and whatnot, you know, because it is a lot. But I would say that I would just make this story very short. This was in Brazil. I encountered a couple, a European couple. I think they were either Dutch or German, like the way they were talking. And I was living in this hostel, and this street that I was living in is known for a lot of prostitution. I got to know, you know, like you will have people standing there just waiting for these tourists to come up to them, or they come up to them and do the little transaction, you know. So I met some of these people. I have a picture with two of them, and we spoke a little bit, and I was trying to be like the mama, like, you girls, you don't have to do this and all of this. And being broke as I am, it's not like I could have just taken out some money and be like, here, take this, go back to school or whatever, you know. I was broke myself. Like this trip, I was living on a budget, you know. It was sad, bruh. But anyhow, I went on the festival, on the carnival, and like I said, I looked like, when you think Brazilians, like they have all shades and shapes and everything. But for majority, when you think Brazilians, you think people like me and a little bit lighter and so on and so forth. Do you understand? Like you think, yeah, that's what, you know. So oftentimes, like if you see another person claiming that they are from these countries, you get a little bit like, what are you, you know? But anyhow, so I went to the carnival, and we had been partying, drinking, everything, and I was sitting outside taking my cigarette, you know, because you couldn't smoke upstairs. And while I was sitting there, this couple, like they were like late 60s or something. This was like an old couple that was passing me by, and the streets was more or less empty, you know. And they were starting to whisper, and they were looking at each other. They stopped, and I just knew, because I had seen, like I said, I've been there for a while now, so I had seen what has transpired, you know. So I just knew what these people was about to do. So she, like the husband basically sent the wife then, like, oh, maybe it's easier if you do it, you know. So the husband sent the wife, and the wife was on her way to come down to speak to me. And I was like thinking for myself, I remember, like, let her just try me, and we'll see, huh? I'm not kidding with you. Like, it is a lot of, like, even in I saw a documentary where they were talking about was it in Kenya, like East Africa somewhere. They call these people beach boys. Like it would be like, because you would think like it's old people most of the time, and it's like, bruh, from what I seen, it's not always old people. Like this so-called sex tourism, like I said, people mistaking me for being some of the locals sometimes. I remember in Brazil, like you had people as young as 19, 20 coming over to Brazil to buy sex and interact in all kinds of nonsense. I'm just saying, and the people from that country, you guys can confirm what I'm saying, that this is not to attack a certain group or anything like that. This is just straight the truth. It was so funny because I met like a group of tourists, and I heard they speaking Swedish. So I spoke Swedish back to them. They got so nervous. Like this was all of them were old, like a couple, you know? It was almost like they were there to do something that they wouldn't have normally done in their country. And now they have somebody there talking Swedish, living in the same hotel. There was a little bit like, oh shit, you know? And I was like, bruh, you guys are hypocrites. You guys do all of this fuck shit overseas, and then you come back home and you act holier than holy, you know? So I just want to say that some of your grandparents, some of your parents that do these travels, when they come back and they only show you the hiking and stuff like that, ask them what they really did down there. Ask them. They won't tell you, but I'm just put them on blast, you know? Because for what I seen when I was in Latin America, even in Africa, bro, like, it is madness. It is madness. Like, you have Gambia. If I mention Gambia, they had a whole documentary about older women traveling to Gambia to be with young men and, you know, be impregnated and all of this stuff, you know, just to get their little kid or whatever, you know? It is, I'm not kidding with you. In Kenya, they call them beach boys. This is what I was saying. Like, it's not always old people. Like, this was like so-called young people, like surfer dudes or whatever, that would come there and they would give the locals, they would give them all kinds of disease like hepatitis, what is it called? The other one, chlamydia, HIV and stuff like that, you know? It's crazy. So you have some countries like Gambia, they decided to go out to the news and basically tell the locals, be careful when it comes to these tourists, you know, because a lot of them, they will come with disease and stuff, you know, so don't be so fast, you know, for a buck. Yeah, I know you're suffering, but it's not worth it. Okay, so I think I have covered all of them, more or less. I have 22 so-called statements here, but I don't think I have been talking about all of the 22s, because I'm like I said, some of them are basically repetition. I'm basically repeating myself, you know, so it is what it is. So anyhow, this video was called How to Get Cancelled. So somebody would maybe watch this and be like, no, I don't think this is cancelable, you know, like, you know, most of this stuff, you can back it up with facts and all of this stuff. Like, it maybe hurt your feelings a little bit. It maybe makes you think and feel some type of way, but in the end of the day, like, the truth hurts sometimes, you know, but it is what it is. So some people will be like that, and other people will be like, oh, this one is just begging for some kind of dispute, war, whatever, you know, and it's like, whatever. Think what you want to think. I'm not thinking about you at all. Anyhow, have a pleasant day, or have the day that you deserve. Have the day that you deserve, okay? Take care.